first of all, of course, I have to welcome you to MTM6 second day, like I did it already. And I already, yesterday was so good that today is going to be even better, of course. And I have to say that we have a last minute change on the program. It is already correct online because our dear Ibrahim helped us and change with Tarana. So Ibrahim is going to present his paper. I do not, because Tarana couldn't be on our panel, so we tried to find a solution, and they took each other turn. So please take notice that Ibrahim Omara is going to, from Tanta University, Egypt, is going to present his paper. I do not know what is in your newspaper, content analysis of Braille magazines, today, okay, at 2:30, panel 6, okay? And Tarana Mahmudova from Baku State University, Azerbaijan, is going to present her paper, Mass Communication in Post-Soviet Azerbaijan in the Era of Globalization, How International Information Exchange Contributes to the Rebirth of Magazines and Their Strategy, just tomorrow, but also at 2:30 p.m., okay, on panel 9. It's that exchange. Today, the chat is open to private messages. We fixed the problem we had yesterday, and we don't know why exactly. And now everybody can communicate to everybody at the same time, like we are doing, or just to someone in particular to say, boring, for instance, okay? We need networking, and now you have that opportunity too. We remember that during the breaks, the session remains open. Everyone can keep networking using the disposable and very secure chat that we send you the link at the end of each panel. It's Carolina that does that, or using the internal Zoom chat, like I've said before. At the end of each session, you can also ask for a Zoom room to have a private meeting during the break, or schedule it before using our email. Finally, our talking circle is today. Let's all meet on 4:30 p.m. on Zoom Gallery Mood with all the cameras switched on so we can talk face to face. Let's discuss ideas that keep us going after MTM6 closed doors, okay? Until lunchtime. Today, me and Tim are still, Tim and I, you still have time to send us topics discussions by email or even through the chat during our inspiring sessions. You put TC and we know that it's for us. And don't forget to follow our news on the website Live Blogging and on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Our team is doing such a great work. If you haven't seen it yet, go there because there are photos, there are texts. Marvelous. And now I give the floor to my dear Mary Auger. Thank you for your time, sorry.
Thank you, Carla. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm delighted to be chairing the debating news magazines today. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started, and I hand you over to the first presentation. First of all, if you would anyone who's not presenting, please keep your microphones off and your cameras turned off. Secondly, unfortunately, there's no recording by anybody else. If I may ask you not to record, the sessions all the presentations will of course be recorded by the wonderful tech team. And lastly, just one more thing I'd like to, if you are tweeting today, please do use the hashtag MTM6, which is our wonderful social media team. Anna and Chloe are working busily away behind the scenes to cover everything. We're also doing some blog posts as well, so please do check out our Mapping the Magazine website as well. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the very first session of the morning, which is visual communication and journalism, teaching visual literacy for the design of news magazines. We have by our host university, Lusvana, and it's Ruth Machuro, who teaches and also works in the marketing department of the university, but more importantly, she has designed our wonderful Facebook banners, which is fantastic. And also partnering her is Alexandra Baradas, also of Lusvana University. Thank you very much. I hand over to you both.
Sorry, I was saying hi to everyone, and I'm the one who is presenting because we can't speak at the same time. So I'm sharing my, I think my desktop is better. Are you seeing everything, please? See, good? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the our communication. It's I don't know if I should say this, but it was supposed to be a poster, but as we can't have posters, we have to present a PowerPoint. So our theme is visual communication and journalism, teaching visual literacy for the design of news magazines. It's a co-work with Ruth, as Mary told us. And so we decided for this communication to or intended to analyze the design project of the discipline of digital image computing from the degree in communication and journalism at our university, Lusofna. And we wanted to figure out how this curricular unit provides students with the technical and conceptual principles essential to a communication project, namely in image composition, typography, and layout. And we wanted to know if the way we motivate or how to motivate the students to design a new magazine, following all the steps of its development from naming to production. Sorry, okay. So about the project, students are usually organized, I think it's missing, no, sorry. Organized in working groups of 4 to 6 elements, this semester exception because of the Zoom classes, to develop a news magazine. For the project, all textual and imagery contents to be used are of individual authorship in an interdisciplinarity with the curricular units, journalistic genres, and photojournalism. And for the final project, is the result of the work carried out on the 3 curricular units, structure in a news magazine close to reality, using the knowledge taught by us, both in editorial design as well as in image treatment and composition, using specific software. So we decided to make a questionnaire where for the former and the actual students to understand their expectations about the various stages of the project and evaluate the contents learned, the results obtained, and the difficulties encountered. And with the results, we wanted to compare how students face the integration of visual literacy with the inclusion of editorial design content and tools associated with the journalist's profession as verbal and visual information mediators. So the first question was about the expectations and how they face the briefing that we passed to them on the first class. So the first question was, the briefing was explicit regarding the different project phases, and here are their responses. They just 35 students answered our questionnaire. The second, in the expectation section, the second question was, the briefing was explicit regarding the dates of the project presentation and delivery, and the results, of course. The third, the involvement of the 3 CU's curricular units proved beneficial for the development of the project, and if the complexity of the project corresponded to the time available for its elaboration. In the first analysis, the requirements of carrying out the project were easily attainable, in their opinion, looking for the 3 pages briefing we passed to them. Then we wanted to know if about the syllabus we project for all the semester. So for the project realization was important the learning of software taught, because they have to develop the magazines and the images and everything. For the project realization was important to have knowledges of on-image composition. The third, for the project realization, it was important to have knowledges on typography and text processing. The fourth, for the project realization, it was important to have knowledges on layout, page composition, like text-image relationship. And then we wanted to know about the methodology we used on for the progress of the project during the semester. So we asked about the project realization throughout the semester allowed a good learning through the application of the taught tools, design things, layout, and the software, of course. The project realization in different phases represented a good methodology for the proposed challenge. So we have 3 main phases. The first is they give us and show us, present some ad pages. So we have here some examples that they develop in Photoshop. The second phase and presentation is the covers and the naming of the magazines. So we have here some examples also. And the third phase of the presentation for the project is the presentation of the layout, like a master layout they are going to use for the rest of the magazine. We have here just 2 examples. And then we continue with the questionnaire. And if the third question we asked is if the presentation of the different phases to the teachers was decisive for the perception of the state in which the project was. Because I think it's important, we think it's important for them to know how they are progressing on the project. So and we asked about the motivation factors. If the use of individual development content was a motivation factor, of course. The construction of a news magazine from scratch, from naming to production, printing. And if the project carried out in the context of redaction or group was also motivation factor. In conclusion, as we saw the results on the charts, we think the answers given are positive to the good development of the curricular units throughout the semester. The briefing of the project is explicit as designed. The methodology applied is focused on the students' interests. And at the end of all the process, students usually surprise themselves and the teachers with complete magazines designed from scratch. I have here some examples. I hope now this will work. Just 3 for you to see some, I think you are seeing now this. This is a magazine in Vista and the cover. And of course, the ads are made from the students. And I'm not talking anymore, I'm just showing you. They have a layout that it's kept on all the magazine. It's all decided from the students. We just have 30 pages because this software doesn't allow more. Okay. Then we have, sorry, this one. So which shows, oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Which shows different kinds of different solutions in the inside for the news magazines This is like a supplement of a news magazine, not really a big one, and different design solution, layout solutions. So they have to know that the magazines usually have multiple of 4 pages to fold, of course. And this is the last one. I'm sorry. So the cover. The ads. And that's it. I'm finished. We're finished. I was seeing if there's something. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I've just realized I've been muted.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Alexandra and Rute. It's a fascinating presentation. And I thought the news magazine, the last one, the last slides, it's a beautiful magazine. So neat and well organized and very clean lines. The layout's fantastic. A really great project. So thank you both. I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions at the end. I think it is, you're ahead of time, so well done. I think we'll be hopefully making up some for the late start.
Okay.
So I think now is probably the time to move on to the case of May Alenciajo with Sonia Lamy and Louis Bonix, regional news magazine in the context of the declining press, which is going to be a very exciting presentation again, I'm sure. I think news magazines are really strong in the market at the moment. I'm just talking while we wait for the next presenter to come in to slides. I think there's a good debate as well in the talking circle today about news magazines and the important role they play, because the news is disseminated now in such a way, we've lost so many sub-editors, etc. in the UK, and I'm sure it's the case around the world, that the news isn't as tightly written as it should be. The checks aren't always as good. I think a lot of news lacks analysis. So these news magazines are incredibly important for their analysis of the news and making sense of what's actually going on and getting the background story. I would also like to say that the design as well which is Rute and Alexandra just covered, is also important in actually ensuring that people engage with the magazine and that the consumption's higher. I think I don't know about in across the rest of the world, but in the UK, certainly the Week magazine is the leading news magazine analysis for news analysis at the moment. Which is very highly subscribed to, and it actually condenses rather than extends the news into a sort of summary of what's happened in the week, which is very useful. And also it's important, I think, to pick out those key issues that have gone on in the week or the month, very much so. I also think that in the debate we should be questioning how these magazines can achieve sustainability for the long term. Now, most of them are very strong in terms of their support and their subscription, But however, nothing is immune to change, and I hope that these magazines stay strong and we can find a good way forward for the future to protect them, not just in the short term, but in the long term for years to come. In terms of print magazines, it's interesting that a lot of people actually are starting to return to print and actually prefer to get their news analysis in print because of the long form journalism. Now, you often find with long form journalism, it's not nearly as good online. Online works mostly and it works really well, but when you've got articles which may be of 2,000 words plus, you really do want a print product to flick through, because you will lose concentration on the screen, and we all know the research that's been done about that. It is very difficult to read any long form article of more than 2,000 words, I think, on screen. So enough from me. I think, are we ready now to move into our next presentation?
Yes, I'm ready.
Excellent. So I will now hand over to Sonia and Louis for their excellent paper on a regional news magazine in the context of the declining press and the case of Mais Alentejo. Sonia, Louis, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share the screen. Oh, sorry about that. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop because I have this in the end now. Oh. Yes, no, it's okay. So thank you. And first, I want to thank Carla, because this paper is like a challenge that Carla do to me and Luís Bonici, because we are from an institute from Alentejo, Instituto Politécnico de Porto Alegre, that is in Alentejo. So she was like responsible for the challenge that she do to us. I'm going to first conceptualize. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that I'm not sharing my presentation. Now it's okay. Yes, now it's okay. So just at the first time, I'm going to do a conceptualization of the news magazine as a concept, just to focus my first on the news magazine as a concept, and then on local magazines. I will try to explain how this magazine, Mais Alentejo, is organized and what kind of work is developed by the publication. Just to start, I think that it's very important to explain the name. Mais Alentejo is more Alentejo. Alentejo is the region in Portugal, and the name is more Alentejo. But I will use the name in Portuguese, of course, because it's the real one. In attempt to conceptualize the concept of news magazine, we often find references to physical support. Gans talk about it, about like 50 pages and news columns. The cover is also indicated as one of its most important elements, as Cardoso say. and refers to an existence of a language typical of a news magazine that can be found on the cover. It's like an hybrid and halfway between journalism and advertising. Fernando Cascais defines news magazine as a non-daily and periodically publication format. The organization of all of the elements in news magazines usually classify news with some kind of themes and issues and elements that are composed all of the publication. For Daniel Ricardo, news magazine presents a special distinctive feature and is also consistency in the formal and background planes and offsets formed by the main pieces, boxes, images, graphic design, as well as texts distinct to safety, the public curiosity raised by individuals who through their merits and demerits gain notoriety of ephemeral. News handling is also an element to consider for Visão, a Portuguese magazine, and in its livro de estilo, is like a book of style of the magazine. Also say that the focus continues to be current. News magazine must seek and to anticipate and create a background so that it works as simultaneously complementary and alternative means, completes and does not repeat what the others say. And she stressed this like very important in all of this book of style. Livro de estilo is of the news magazine, the Portuguese news magazine. Proximity of readers is also identified as a defining element of a news magazine. Inform us about issues and events that can affect us, and they tell us what's going on in the world and what it means to us. So, in the same sense, Daniel Ricardo, he lists anticipation, interpretation, comprehensiveness, and human interest, entertainment, provision of services. News you can use it, and the presence of emerging figures in social life. Based on the idea, and now going to the local journalism and trying to do a relation, a relation between this kind of journalism when it's in local as point of start, based on the idea of proximity that we have just seen, is an important element of news magazines. Local and journalism represents a territory that can be enhanced in this type of publications, since it represents a sounding board for the communities in which it is inserted. As an arena of public discussion of the affairs of a community, local journalism expresses the various voices, personalities, themes, traditions existing in a locality. The connection of the local press to the territory is fundamental and is one of the main important arguments of a distinctive factor in its specificities. In this sense, local journalism represents a space for consolidation of democracy by representing itself as a source of expression of the all local populations. Citizen collaboration is an asset and has been enhanced to some European contexts. Potential these initiatives hold for producing high quality, engaging, or impactful in journalism. When you talk about local journalism in Alentejo, it's just to show for who is not Portuguese, of course, or don't see the Portuguese territory. When we talk about Alentejo, it's a very a big region, not with lots of people, but it's another question. In a study carried by Portuguese Communication Observatory, Obercom, Alentejo is the fourth region with the highest number of people who read newspapers. Furthermore, a study by the Portuguese Regulatory Authority of the Media, ERC in Portuguese, which analyzes the reading habits of local newspapers, reveals that percentage of readers, it's 64 in Porto Alegre, 61% in Évora, 53 in Beja. With the exception of district of Beja, the percentage of reading habits of local newspapers is superior that in the rest of the country. In the same study, Alentejo represents almost 7% of the total publications in Portugal, specifically Porto Alegre with 3.2% and Évora 2.2% and Beja 1.3%. About Mais Alentejo as a news magazine, to understand, it's like it was founded in July 2000. It's a bi-monthly magazine. Mais Alentejo is based on Beja in Alentejo and reports mainly regional, local business, products, patrimony, news business about products linked usually about tourism and gastronomy. It is the only Alentejo publication that has a distribution throughout the Portuguese territory, being present in about 3,000 points of sale. So it is sold in lots of points in Portugal. All of the numbers of this news magazine have 140 pages. High quality, it has high quality paper and cover with the strong sheets. The director of Mais Alentejo definition about the news about Mais Alentejo, about the news magazine, he defines as a magazine of pleasures on whose pages you can find products, brands, events, activities which Alentejo has to offer to the whole country, like giving voice to gastronomy, wines, olive oil, sausages, hams, meats from Alentejo. Alentejo is very well known because of the gastronomy and by the sausages and cheese. It's very strong on that. But it's one of the issues that António Sancho sells in between commas, of course, but that it's a thing that it's have value on the pages of the news magazine. When you analyze the magazine, you observe interesting elements. One main, all of the news magazines has just one main cover theme and 4 or 5 highlights in the cover. Not the highlights, they are not always clear about content. Sometimes the words used are strange or are not, to who don't know the reality of Alentejo, it may be some kind of strange. All of the numbers of the news magazine are absolutely regular. All of these we start this analyze with 5 numbers between in the past year, 2019, in February, April, the number April, June, and then November, and then another one in February again. It's in a total of 5 numbers. All of these 5 numbers of the news magazine has 12 chronicles, 1 photo gallery, one photo gallery, 1 interview, and some sections about all of the numbers has one section about manjares, like delicacies, restaurants, talking about wines, falando de vinhos, about about wines and Alentejo wines, tendencies, trends, about gastronomy, and some flash news. The flash news is a brief news that about all of the Alentejo territory. The cover titles are not so clear always. The headline is more descriptive than creative. Many times, in this case study, it's like a self-promotion, a promotion about the news magazine. By the way, I like to share a curiosity about this. The last edition from May, because of the COVID situation and the news magazine should be published in April, but she just go out in May. But it's another time. It's again a self-promotion. It's about the anniversary edition. In addition, the cover theme headlines magazine have 5 highlights about the product, a producer, or a name, a factory, or a business in a business of Alentejo. Some examples I bring here. It's like Nobremar in Lisbon. It's about a name, and this kind of highlights sometimes are not clear, and it's not easy to understand it. The photographs of the photo gallery and the cover page are artistic and with some details of the landscapes, and usually they fill the entire cover. Like we can see, these are 2 examples of the 2 different covers. One of the landscape, and the other one it's like a detail. Okay. In all of the editions and the analysis, the columnists are exactly the same 12. The rubrics always have the same name, rather, or in the contrary, in the thread of time. However, we only consider it the news and the analysis of the news for this communication. Most of the news reports are focused on a product or a place. We identify whether the product was related, usually about gastronomy and tourism, or other products, to allow us to have clearer analysis on the most frequent themes. Many of the pieces focus on tourist and gastronomy products from Alentejo. Journalistic journals, all of the editions has the same organization. So, like I said before, 12 opinion articles, 1 photo gallery, and at the number 4 or 5 of the news magazine, and 1 interview at the end of the news magazine. Just the number of news and news reports are variables. We name as briefs the more short news, like 1 paragraph or 2, and all of them are included on a page, on a special section that names as flash. And this is like a graphic that where we can see that briefs, we have some briefs, but the chronicles has a big, it's a heavy, a very heavy, a strong rule in the news magazine. But we have some reports, some news, 5, 6. One of them have 8, but it's interesting to see that. And
Sonia, sorry, just to interrupt you. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. It's okay. News subject about news subject. We have tourism and gastronomy as the main subjects that we see on the news magazine. About the news sources, it's usually linked to tourism, like the owners of hotels, rural hotel spaces, gastronomy, like the chefs and business owners. It's interesting because usually who have the voice and who is used as source is usually the owners, the chiefs, the chiefs of the restaurants. So we just like a conclusion, and like we said in the first part, it would not make sense that there to be no areas of entertainment and escape, which would be provide the reader with the possibility of having fun and letting their imagination run wild. A magazine should have concrete cases, experiences, and personal testimonials, and which raise the public identification with the stories and clarify the data gathered with the investigating journalists. So Mais Alentejo, it's like a magazine that proves to be an example of local project. There are an efforts to show touristic Alentejo. We found a strong exploration of Alentejo's gastronomy and tourism, as well as in innovative products, whether new or not. The presence of news report is related to the efforts of journalists to present topics with some elements of reporting, transporting the reader to the place. It have a strong role on that. So it's all. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Teresa. That was, Sonia, that was a fantastic presentation. I really enjoyed it so much. And I'm sure everyone else, I can see from the chats, there's been a lot of interest in that talk. As with Ruth and Alexandra's presentation, these are important things, and particularly local magazines. And in the UK also, we have had a resurgence of local independent magazines, regional, which has been fantastic, and they're very well supported. Now I'd like to hand over to Carla Baptista and Teresa Campos, of Nova University of Lisbon, Portugal, and their paper on the narratives of domestic violence in magazine Viseu. I would also, just before I hand over, just point your attention obviously to the slide and our website here, and also please remind you to use the hashtag MTM6 in when posting on social media. Thank you very much. Okay, over to you, Carla and Teresa, if we're ready. Are we ready for Teresa? Excellent.
Okay. Sorry, I was on the mute mode. Are you listening to me already?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I think you missed the greetings. I was saying I'm very happy to be here, saying good morning to everyone and thanking the organizers. And saying also that we have a slightly different communication from the previous one. So I think we will have a diversity in this panel, which is good. So just starting, I've prepared the small text to introduce the topic, and then I will hand over to my co-author, Teresa Campos. And I try to keep, in order to keep the focus and the time, I'm going to, in some parts of the communication, just try to read the presentation. So the presentation is entitled Domestic Violence Narratives in the News Magazine Viseu. It's a Portuguese news magazine, a quality one. And the main purpose of this presentation is to share with you a very particular journalistic experience in which this quality news magazine, and we can say this is already an historical title in the context of the Portuguese weekly press. It was founded in 1993, so 26 years ago, but it has a previous story behind it. And in this experience, they dare to break what we can say was the objectivity role regarding the way they approach the topic of domestic violence. So my name is Carla Baptista. I'm a researcher at Nova University, and my co-author is Teresa Campos, and she's a journalist in news magazine Viseu. And Teresa is also the main author of the long format and the long duration reportage that we are going to analyze. It was done during the 2015 year, so this presentation has a lot of self-reflection about journalistic work. And we'll try to use this case study to raise questions about the role of journalism in addressing social structural problems such as domestic violence. And also the potential to change not only the journalistic narrative about this topic, but also to promote social change in a longer scale and context. And with this broad context, also to discuss the specific adequacy of the news magazine language to adopt more engaging, probably less journalistic narratives. So in general, as main goals, what we want to do is to analyze how changes in the journalistic narrative of a Portuguese news magazine can affect notions of perceived gender violence. And we will depart from the reportage called Here, a Woman Died, Teresa will tell you more about this. This was a long duration news story produced over a year, following 42 femicides that occurred in 2014, the previous year. And also, of course, the paper wants to reflect in the relationship between media, gender violence, and readers' engagement in the context of the Portuguese weekly press. We can say that this reportage is an experiment in the news magazine Visão and signals a different approach towards domestic violence coverage. What were these main differences? The journalists, mainly Teresa, but also some other colleagues, immersed in the lost former lives of these 42 murdered women, took a political commitment to help fight domestic violence and became, we can say, political actors in a civic cause. So traditional values such as objectivity, impartiality were consciously traded by others, such as proximity with the stories and empathy with the victims. As it is, we can say in a journalistic slang, they took a side. So moving the slides now. What we can say is that domestic violence is an old, prevalent, and real-world problem that may affect anyone. And also media coverage is a major determinant of the extension to which it is perceived to be a public issue. We also know from many previous studies that domestic violence is typically covered as an incident-focused. Social dimensions, including gender discrimination, are many times left out of most news stories. In our case study, following a threatening increase in the number of women murdered by former or current intimate partners, the newsroom agreed to take a stand. Reporter guidelines were discussed internally, causing the journalistic narrative to change, at least during that year. News sources' values were considered differently, so as storytelling conventions. The follow-up coverage became as important as the informative story. Victims occupy the center of the coverage, not the perpetrators. And reporters concentrated on human losses and the social and family impacts, giving up any intention to explain the crimes or giving motivations to the crimes. So the news magazine found this motto, "Here a woman died," and organized a photo exhibition with the victims' faces and sensitive remembrance visual compositions like abandoned objects belonging to the victims, places linked to their lives, and so on. And the reason we find this so interesting is that it seems to be completely different from the usual journalistic practice and the narratives about domestic violence. It's a case study that helps us think about the global and national context of this type of violence. We have this traditional theoretical framing about domestic violence. There is this definition of the United Nations. It is a human rights concern, a development, economic issue. It involves a considerable array of policies, education strategies, political actions, and so on. And it's also a very relevant research topic. The relationships between gender, power, sexuality, and intimate violence demands an interdisciplinary, complex, and multi-level approach. Just to conclude my part and pass it to Teresa, we can say that there is this need. I really like this expression from Rousseau and Vaz, that we need a diversity mindfulness to approach domestic violence, meaning that we need to embrace a complex interplay involving many intersectionalities: age, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, class. All these social dimensions are associated with stigmatized identities that may converge with gender to magnify or diminish the risk for experiencing violence, which means that it's never a simple story. And our purpose is to help telling how is it being told in the media. For many studies before, we know that media coverage of domestic violence across nations and across different journalistic cultures tends to share some general traits that are the ones who are in this slide. There is concern, and we are also very concerned about it, that these patterns may contribute to escalating the problem. Some of the characteristics, it's usually androcentric. Perpetrators and not the victims occupy the center of the story. It's usually insufficient, it's underreporting, it's not proportional to the social problem. And that leads to prevalence of invisible victims and stigmatization. It's poor, there are many worded questions, there is lack of context, it's easily diverted. Often the stories are very quickly transformed into crime stories. Is sometimes unethical. There are privacy issues, there are unverified sources, there is lack of empathy, there is blame shifting, blame on the victim behavior. It's very official. There is dependence of official sources like police, courts, lawyers, and so on. It's engagelessness. I don't know if this word really exists in English, but it means that we want to stress the lack of social dimension. It doesn't promote civic engagement. It's not able, many stories are not able to raise awareness and public indignation as they should do. It's often sensationalized. There are graphic details, a voyeuristic gaze, and the use of stereotypes and cognitive preconceptions, most of them about gender role attributions. And it's negative. There is an emphasis on dramatic and unhappy, if not fatal, outcomes. For example, femicides are always news, but verbal or psychological violence or physical violence, not necessarily leading to death of the women, is rarely news, even if the number of cases is huge. So this is a more general contextualization, and now I will pass it over to Teresa, and she will detail the experience in Visão. Thank you. Just ending the stop share, okay.
Não percebo o que aconteceu.
Teresa, just before you get started, a short time warning. You have about 8 minutes left because we do hopefully want some time for questions.
Okay. I don't know if you are seeing the
We can see the
presentation.
your screen. Yeah, we can
Yes?
see it.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sorry for this, this beginning a little bit stressy, but well, my name is Teresa Campos. I'm the journalist of Visão that lead these reports during 1 year It was something really unusual and out of our common practices. Domestic violence has now been a public crime since 20 years now. So it was like 15 by that time when we noticed there was something that was passing by and we're not paying attention. Um, Even though there are recent studies that tell us that maybe this is not didn't make a really change, which was our trigger to start um, the reportage. It was like we have these big events with so many deaths, and you don't see that role of the journalists and magazines that have this idea that we can analyze, have more space, and people can reflect on what they are reading. And we were not doing our role, so it was something like how this happened during 1 year with so many crimes, and we don't see any effects. And so we took it for our role to try to change something about it. And so this journalistic project did came out for happened for 1 year. It was um, motivated for the happenings of the year before. Carla mentioned there was 43 women that died in 2014, and that was the idea in the beginning. It was to tell those stories. Um, in this, when I was starting to recover all the details, so we could show this portrait of the country in 1 year. Um, it was impossible logistically. We could not do it in a time that were not more dead. So we decided to do it along the way. As things were happening, we were covering and trying to contextualize and have in the end um, a portrait. This idea of having a portrait of the country. I'm sorry, there are too many things opening my. Until then, we can say there was not really an issue for this now. There are rare articles done before that year. It was something that came in the news when there was something very um, that was in every news in every TV or newspaper. But it was not an issue for us. It was nothing something that we would cover regularly, like other ones, or like health or education, or it was not. It was something that happened sometimes. So especially there was some years that we did with with children in these families because of the crisis after 2011. 12, 14. By those times, there was some articles about those cases, and when involved public figures. So it was something like everyone was talking about it, and we could say that it was something we could pay more attention, but not before that. So the idea of this portrait, it was something done in the middle of all our daily routines. So as we didn't have the events previously, we had to do it along the way, and without we only knew that in the end we would have a portrait of the country in a certain moment. That year, it was the year that the law made 15 years, so we can make a mark of like 15 years after you have this law. There is no public indignation. There is no concern about these things that happen about us, and we're not analyzing what happens. It just have a news someone died here, and it was something that we did like that during the year. So there were some lines that were interested in our coverage or to maintain, and one idea was not showing blood. That is something that is um, for any other crimes. So it's the idea of showing that this was something that happened very close to all of us, and also the idea that we should not justify the aggressor, even though I think when I read what we wrote by then, in some stories, the vox populi that we happen to heard in as when we were to the places and we were trying to find this image to show where it happens. It may have happening. I think that we were so in the role of this cause that really had became to us, and so in the end it was assumed as a cause. There was this during the year we were collecting the images, trying to show how we could organize it. It was I think we didn't think about it in the beginning, how we could show if we had 43 deaths, how could we show it in a magazine without ticking all the pages. And editors and directors are always trying to have some things that.
Teresa, sorry, could you please just put your microphone a bit far away from your mouth because it's doing feedback, please? No, just a bit, if possible, to let it a bit far away from your mouth. Can you try it, please? Because we are hearing with lots of feedback here. Thank you.
Sorry, Teresa, just before you get started again, I'm just, we're now on time limit, so you have 2 minutes if that's okay to wrap up, because we have quite a few questions for everybody. Thank you.
Yes, of course, I will So I was telling you about this. You can see the page of the article where we tell that what happened, how we get to embrace this role of trying to create this foster active citizenship, because the idea that the project could go along the publication in the magazine, and so it became an exposition. It was, as I was telling you about the space in the magazine, and all of those images, they would be so small in the magazine that they could not shine, as you can say. And so next year, 2016, there was the exposition, and then it was integrated in a government initiative and had the debates and conferences until 2019. It was the last one, and I think it's over by now. The last recommendations of the entity of the regularization say that still the media are perpetrating the stereotypes and are not including the recommendation as support lines. So I think we could say contribute to some visibility, but still there was, at the report next year, Association of the Victims was saying that news were used by the aggressors, intimidate victims. So it is quite tricky. Carla, would let you finish if you please. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm sorry if there was some things in the thank you.
Thank you very much. That was brilliant. Thank you, Teresa. Fantastic. And I would just like to go back to our wonderful panel and say thank you so much to Rute, Alexander, Sonia, Louis, Teresa and Carla for their fabulous papers. Generated a lot of comments on the chat, and also we have some questions. So I'm going to do the questions in order of the presentation. So the first question is to Ruth and Alexandra from Carolina, who is wondering about what it would imply moving to digital in terms of teaching and learning, because this requires a different set of tools besides InDesign and Photoshop.
Hello. Since we enter onto the COVID stage we had to rewrite the discipline, because students usually work on Photoshop and InDesign, and they don't have that software on their computers, and or sometimes they don't have the computers that can get, or I'm sorry, they can't support the softwares because they are old or something. So we found a Photoshop online that where the students could work on. It's very similar to the Photoshop, the normal Photoshop. And as InDesign was a tool that they couldn't get, we, for this year only, on e-learning, we taught Scribus. It's a free software, and it's very soft. It's not really heavy for the computers. It's not the same as InDesign, but it works. And you saw the last magazine I showed you. The two last magazines I showed you were from this year, from the learning teaching. And I think it worked. The students, they didn't know InDesign, so it was easy to teach and not compare the two softwares. Did I answer the question?
Thank you, Alexandra. Yes, and would you please put a link in the chat to that software? I think that would be useful for everybody, because I think a lot of us are in that position with our students, particularly when we're all in lockdown. So I think that'd be really useful. Thank you. Also, continuing on with your paper, Tim would like to know, there seems to be scope for smaller indie magazines to fill the print gap, and we need to equip people, we still need to equip people with those skills, or do we? What do you think?
Sorry, I didn't hear you well, so I didn't understand the question.
Okay, I'll repeat it, sorry. There seems to be scope for smaller indie magazines to fill the print gap, and we still need to equip students with those skills, or do we?
I think on the previous project we used to give to the students, they are collected on grouped in redactions with 4 or 6 students, so they have a huge magazine, so 64 pages or something like that. For this e-learning stage we are now, we just asked them for like a supplement for a news magazine, so, and groups of 2 students. So we got smaller magazines, but always with the same theme, like a news magazine supplement, but treat it like a news magazine. I think probably, and we are on the news magazines because as we have this interdisciplinarity with the journalistic genres, they write all the contents with Carla Cardoso, and that's the texts. Those are the texts they use for the magazine. So that's why we keep it on news magazine, and we don't try another kind of printing stuff. Sorry. Is it okay, Tim? Yes.
Does that answer your question, Tim? Okay, great. Okay.
Yes.
So great, thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on. The next question is for Sonia, and this is from Teresa Mendes-Laws. And Teresa says that's amazing news. What percentage of newspaper, the percentage of newspaper readers since Alenjo was traditionally an area with higher literacy in the past century. What do they read? So what do they read now?
Yes, these numbers is related with the numbers of the local press, and Alentejo is the fourth region of with the highest number. I don't have the 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 teams, the newspapers that they read it.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Okay, no problem. Teresa also would like to know, Sonia, who owns the magazine and how is it financed?
Yes, the magazine, it belongs to the director is the owner, and he have an organization that supports, and he say that the magazine it's supported by advertisement. I don't count all of the pages of advertisements because it's not my area, but they have the magazine have lots of publicity of advertisements, and it's with high quality press with and the most, and I think that I read the question of team. I don't know if I can, because the two questions are related, one and the other. I don't know if I can link the two questions, because the advertisement it's usually it's advertisement from big tourist hotels or big groups of tourism, banks, insurance organizations. I think it's like a work of finding good advertisement supporters.
Okay.
I don't know if I answer the question, but
I think so. I just would add, Sonia, I presume as well that's advertisements and also copy sales that mostly finance the magazine, and subscriptions, of course.
Yes, also.
Okay.
And we have I don't know if it's important, but I think it's the contest is it's important. They have just two journalists, okay, one journalist senior and another one that it's pay to the news reporter that she produced is one.
Okay, thank you. Also, Sonia, Tim would like to know if you notice any correlation between the names on the cover and the advertisements inside. It's not meant to be a criticism, he says, but economic survival might be at stake, quite rightly. Also, is there any indication of material being sponsored or advertorial inside the magazine?
Mary, if I can just butt in. I think
Sure.
Sonia did answer that, and also she put a text answer below in the chat. So
thank you, Tim. Thank you.
We don't need to go into that.
Okay, excellent. Okay, just one more thing. Carla says in Portugal, we are far from news magazine covers one theme, one image. It seems to be the path of Time and Newsweek approaching almost the poster type. Maybe in the future, it's almost back to the future. How does that relate to your studies?
I saw in this case I saw that that this is the reality. The main cover have it's usually the big issue in the magazine. It's interesting to understand if it's a future. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, last but not least, we move across to Carla and Teresa and some questions. The first one's from Teresa, and who says it's a great approach, that of discussing objectivity, but is this a case where civic rights demand it? Which is this is a case where civic rights demand it, and I think this is an important short discussion to have, if we may. Teresa or Carla, what do you think?
Well, we thought so. That was really the trigger that launches that big effort.
Can you turn your mic up a little bit? Can you turn your microphone up a little bit?
Okay.
That's better. Better.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was really the purpose. We decided that it was our role to bring more attention to that subject. It was like, how can this not make? How is not that everyone is not related? When you have a terrorist attack and have a big accident that so many people are killed, 40 women killed every year.
Could you turn, we're still having trouble hearing you a little bit. Can you move your mic up towards your mouth very slightly? The mic, move it towards your mouth a little bit. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You hear now?
Yeah, that's better. It's, I thought that was, I wondered if that was the rationale behind your motivation for the project. There was some, again, as with the other papers, there were some great comments on the chat, and I'm sure you've been through that. Rebecca mentions that Sharon yesterday spoke about domestic violence, in coverage in Cosmopolitan at the Sydney conference. So really that's quite an interesting comparison between your two studies. However, Tim would like to know, how did the project actually come? You've explained rationale, but how did the project actually come to fruition? What actually, how did you start it? And if you can give us a bit of background, that would be great.
How did it start? I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Well, we're having this conversation between journalists, like I was in the news. This is the reports of the year. It has the and so then there was my editor that mentioned that, well, if we could go and do everything, and I think a little bit unexpectedly, the director really said, okay, go for it, get me all the data and tell me how you can do it. And we did it between all the other work, but we didn't let it behind, and we just it was end of the year suddenly.
Lovely. That's a fantastic project, and so worthwhile, as I'm sure all the panel and all of the participants will agree. Thank you so much to all the presenters for presenting their papers today. Now I will take you across to, it's now 11 o'clock, so we're right on time. We have a short break till 11:30 when Tim Holmes, our founder, will be chairing questions about indie magazines and visual journalism. In the meantime, in the break, if you do get a chance, please do look at our Twitter feed and feel free to either retweet or tweet, and also have a look at our blog on mappingthemagazine.org. Thank you very much, everybody.